I stood at my daughter's wedding because she said seats were only for close family. I smiled and walked away. The next day, she got a surprise on her honeymoon. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and comment the city you're watching from. I stood at the entrance of the grand ballroom, watching my daughter's wedding unfold before me like a scene from a movie I wasn't invited to star in. The white roses cascaded down marble columns, and crystal chandeliers cast warm light over 300 guests. Everything looked perfect. Everything except where I was standing. "Excuse me, ma'am." A young usher approached me with that polite smile. "Wedding staff perfect for difficult situations. Are you looking for your seat?" I clutched my small purse tighter. "I'm Rose Williams, Evelyn's mother." His smile faltered slightly as he checked his clipboard. "Oh, Mrs. Williams. Yes, I have you here." He paused, scanning the room. "Right this way." I followed him, expecting to be led to the front rows where family traditionally sits. Instead, we walked past row after row of guests, past Evelyn's college friends, past Ryan's business associates, past people I'd never seen before in my life. We kept walking until we reached the very back. "Here we are," he said, gesturing to a single chair against the wall, practically in the hallway. My throat went dry. "I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. I'm the mother of the bride." The usher's discomfort was palpable. He lowered his voice. "Ma'am, I was specifically told by the bride that this seating was for extended family and family friends." Extended family. The words hit me like ice water. I looked toward the front where Ryan's parents sat in the place of honor, where my ex-husband David occupied the seat that should have been mine, where his new wife Linda smiled and chatted as if she belonged there more than I did. I forced myself to breathe. 26 years ago, I held Evelyn in my arms for the first time. I was the one who walked the floors with her when she had colic. I taught her to ride a bike, helped with every school project, drove her to dance lessons and soccer practice. When David left us when she was 12, I worked 2 jobs to keep her in private school. I was there for every scraped knee, every broken heart, every triumph. And now I was relegated to the back corner like an afterthought. "Thank you," I managed to say to the usher, settling into the chair. From here I could barely see Evelyn at the altar. She looked radiant in her designer gown, the one that cost more than I made in 3 months. Her hair was styled in an elaborate updo adorned with real pearls. She was everything a bride should be, beautiful, glowing, surrounded by love. Except she couldn't even look in my direction. The ceremony was a blur of vows I couldn't hear and tears I fought to hold back. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the applause was thunderous. Evelyn and Ryan walked back down the aisle, their faces beaming with joy. As they passed my section, our eyes met for the briefest moment. She looked right through me. During the cocktail hour, I found myself standing alone near the bar. The other guests mingled in clusters, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings. I recognized some faces: Evelyn's friends from college, a few distant relatives, some of Ryan's family members. But no one approached me. It was as if I were invisible. "Rose." A familiar voice made me turn. It was my sister Carol, looking uncomfortable in her navy dress. "What are you doing back here? Shouldn't you be up front with the wedding party?" "Apparently not," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "According to the seating chart, I'm extended family." Carol's eyes widened. "That can't be right. You're her mother." That's what I thought too. We stood in awkward silence as the reception began. From our distance, I watched Evelyn dance with Ryan, then with my ex-husband David. She looked so happy, so perfect in her bubble of celebration. When the father-daughter dance ended, I waited. Surely now she would seek me out. Surely now there would be a mother-daughter moment. Instead, she danced with Ryan's father, then with her stepmother Linda. The evening wore on, and I remained invisible. During dinner, I sat at a table with people I'd never met, friends of friends, plus ones who seemed as confused about their placement as I was. They made polite conversation, but it was clear they wondered why I was there at all. It wasn't until the cake cutting that Evelyn finally acknowledged my presence. She walked over with Ryan, both of them slightly flushed from champagne and dancing. "Mom," she said, her voice cool and formal. "I'm glad you could make it. Glad I could make it." As if I were some distant acquaintance who might not have shown up. "Evelyn, honey, we need to talk." Not tonight, Mom. It's my wedding day. She glanced at Ryan, who put a protective arm around her waist. We're just trying to enjoy our special day with our real family. Real family. The words cut deeper than I thought possible. I watched them walk away, and something inside me finally broke. Not the dramatic sobbing kind of breaking you see in movies. This was quiet, like the last thread holding a heavy picture finally snapping. I felt it happen, felt something fundamental shift inside my chest. I gathered my purse, kissed Carol goodbye, and walked out of the reception. No one noticed. No one called after me. In the parking lot, I sat in my car for a long time, staring at the elegant venue where my daughter was celebrating the happiest day of her life without me. That's when I decided to check my credit card statements on my phone. Something had been nagging at me for weeks, small charges I didn't remember making. Amounts that seemed higher than usual. As I scrolled through the transactions, my blood turned cold. Flowers, $3,200. Catering deposit, $8,500. Venue rental, $12,000. Dress alterations, $800. Hair and makeup trial, $450. Every single charge was on my card. Every single detail of this wedding that I wasn't even welcome to fully attend had been paid for with my money. I sat in that parking lot until the last guests left, until the lights in the ballroom went dark. And for the first time in 26 years of being Evelyn's mother, I began to plan what I was going to do about it. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by 3 years' worth of credit card statements. Coffee grew cold in my cup as I went through every transaction with a yellow highlighter, marking anything I didn't recognize. By noon, the papers looked like a crime scene, yellow everywhere. The wedding was just the tip of the iceberg. Designer handbags, expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never been to, spa treatments, luxury hotels, even a weekend trip to Napa Valley, all charged to my card. The amounts were staggering. In the past year alone, Evelyn had spent over $40,000 of my money without asking, without even telling me. My hands shook as I tallied the numbers. I thought about all the times I'd chosen generic brands at the grocery store to save money, all the times I'd skipped dinner out with friends because my budget was tight. Meanwhile, my daughter was living like a queen on my dime. I called the credit card company first. Mrs. Williams, I see here that there are additional authorized users on your account, the representative said. Your daughter has had access since 2019. I remember adding her for emergencies, I said, my voice hollow. But this isn't emergencies. Unfortunately, since she's an authorized user, all these charges are legitimate from our perspective. You would need to speak with her directly about reimbursement. Reimbursement? As if Evelyn had $40,000 lying around to pay me back. I spent the rest of the morning making phone calls, trying to understand how deep this went. Each conversation revealed another piece of the puzzle I'd been too blind to see. The apartment Evelyn lived in before moving in with Ryan? I'd been paying half the rent for 2 years without knowing it. The car lease? Also mine. Even her gym membership was somehow connected to my account. At 2 o'clock, I drove to Evelyn's new house, the one she'd moved into with Ryan after their engagement. It was a beautiful colonial in the nicest part of town, with a perfectly manicured lawn and a circular driveway. I'd only been there once before, and that was when Evelyn had grudgingly invited me for dinner 3 months ago. I rang the doorbell and waited. Ryan answered, still in his pajamas despite it being mid-afternoon. Oh, Mrs. Williams. Hi. He looked surprised and not particularly pleased to see me. Evelyn's sleeping. The wedding was pretty exhausting. I need to speak with her. It's important. Ryan hesitated, then called upstairs. Ev, your mom's here. A few minutes later, Evelyn appeared on the staircase looking disheveled and annoyed. She was wearing silk pajamas that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Mom, what are you doing here? Couldn't this wait? No, it couldn't. I held up the folder of statements. We need to talk about these credit card charges. Her face went pale, but she quickly recovered. I don't know what you mean. $40,000, Evelyn. Over the past year alone. All on my credit cards. Ryan shifted uncomfortably beside her. Maybe I should give you two some privacy. No, Evelyn said quickly. Ryan can hear this. We don't have secrets from each other. I almost laughed at the irony. Unlike the secrets you've been keeping from me. Mom, you're being dramatic. Those were just small things here and there. Small things. I opened the folder and started reading. Bergdorf Goodman, $1,500. Lou Bernardine, $450 for dinner. A weekend at the Ritz-Carlton, $1,800. Should I keep going? Evelyn's chin lifted in that defiant way it had since she was a toddler. You said I could use the card for emergencies. Emergencies? What emergency required a $1,000 handbag? You don't understand the pressure I've been under, Mom. Ryan's friends, his family, they have expectations. I couldn't show up to events looking like what? Like the daughter of a working-class woman who sacrificed everything to give you a good life. Ryan put his arm around Evelyn's shoulders. Mrs. Williams, I think you're overreacting. Evelyn's told me how generous you are. She thought you wouldn't mind. She thought I wouldn't mind? Or she thought I wouldn't notice? Evelyn's eyes flashed with anger. You know what? Fine. You want me to pay you back? I'll pay you back. But don't act like you've never benefited from my relationship with Ryan. Having a successful son-in-law reflects well on you too. The audacity of it took my breath away. Reflects well on me? Evelyn, you treated me like a stranger at your own wedding. You seated me in the back like I was some distant relative you barely tolerated. The seating was complicated, Mom. There were politics involved that you wouldn't understand. Politics? I'm your mother. And Ryan's family paid for most of the wedding, she said, which we both knew was a lie. They deserved the good seats. I stared at my daughter, this woman I'd raised, loved, sacrificed for, and realized I was looking at a stranger. When had she become so cold, so calculating? When had she learned to lie so effortlessly? Evelyn, I said quietly, I want you to remove your name from all my accounts. Today. Her mask slipped for just a moment, revealing panic underneath. Mom, you can't be serious. What if there's a real emergency? Then you can call me and ask. Like an adult. This is ridiculous. You're punishing me for spending some money. Some money. I stood up, clutching the folder to my chest. Evelyn, I've been living paycheck to paycheck while you've been living like royalty. I've been eating peanut butter sandwiches for dinner, while you've been dining at 5-star restaurants. Do you understand how that makes me feel? She rolled her eyes. You're being melodramatic. It's not like you're starving. That's when I knew. The daughter I'd raised was gone, replaced by someone who saw me as nothing more than a source of funding. Someone who felt entitled to my sacrifice without offering even basic respect in return. I'll have my name removed from everything by the end of the week, I said, heading toward the door. Mom, wait. For the first time, uncertainty crept into her voice. You don't mean that. I turned back one last time. Yesterday was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, watching my only daughter get married. Instead, it was one of the most humiliating. And now I find out I paid for my own humiliation. You're overreacting, Ryan said, but his voice lacked conviction. Am I? Let me ask you something, Ryan. Did you know she was using my money for all of this? The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. I walked out without another word, leaving them standing in their beautiful foyer in their expensive pajamas, probably wondering how they were going to maintain their lifestyle without my unwitting sponsorship. As I drove home, my phone started buzzing with texts from Evelyn. I didn't read them. For the first time in 26 years, I was done being the mother who always answered, always gave, always forgave. It was time to see what would happen when the money stopped flowing. I didn't sleep at all that night. By 6 in the morning, I was already dressed and driving to the bank. The early morning staff looked surprised to see someone so determined at opening time, but I had a mission. I need to remove an authorized user from all my accounts, I told the banker, sliding the paperwork across her desk. She reviewed the documents with professional efficiency. This will take effect immediately, Mrs. Williams. All cards associated with this user will be deactivated within 2 hours. 2 hours. I calculated the time difference in my head. Evelyn and Ryan would be boarding their flight to Italy right about now. Their honeymoon was supposed to last 10 days. A luxury tour of Tuscany that included 5-star hotels, private wine tastings, and a cooking class in Florence. All of it booked on my credit card, naturally. The banker handed me new cards with updated numbers. These will be active immediately. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Actually, yes. I'd like to set up fraud alerts on all my accounts. Any transaction over $50 should require my direct approval. She nodded, typing efficiently. That's a wise precaution, especially given the unauthorized usage you've experienced. Unauthorized usage. Such a clinical term for what felt like betrayal. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in years. For the first time, I had complete control over my own money. No one could access my accounts without my knowledge. No one could spend my hard-earned savings on luxuries I couldn't afford for myself. My phone started ringing around noon. Evelyn's number flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. The text started shortly after. Mom, my card isn't working. There must be some mistake. Call me back immediately. This is urgent. Mom, we're at the hotel and there's a problem with payment. Fix this now. I poured myself a cup of tea and sat on my back porch, reading each message with growing satisfaction. After decades of being taken for granted, of being treated like an ATM rather than a person, it felt good to have them need me for once. The voicemails were even better. Mom, I don't know what's happening, but all my cards are being declined. We're supposed to check into the hotel in Rome, and I'm absolutely mortified. Ryan's family recommended this place and now we look like frauds. Please call me back immediately. The desperation in her voice was palpable. Good. The second voicemail came 3 hours later. Mom, this isn't funny anymore. We had to move to a cheaper hotel and Ryan is furious. His parents are going to hear about this and I'll be humiliated. You need to fix this right now, or I'll never forgive you. Never forgive me? The irony was almost amusing. By evening, the calls had escalated. Ryan was now leaving messages too, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Mrs. Williams, I don't know what game you're playing, but this is affecting my wife's mental health. We're on our honeymoon, for God's sake. Whatever issues you have can wait until we get back. I deleted each message without responding. The real entertainment came on day 3 of their honeymoon. Carol called me, barely able to contain her laughter. Rose, you need to hear this. My neighbor's daughter works at that fancy travel agency downtown. Apparently, a young couple came in today demanding a refund for their Italian vacation because their credit cards weren't working. They were screaming about fraud and threatening to sue everyone in sight. Is that so? The travel agent said the woman kept saying her mother had sabotaged their honeymoon. She was crying and carrying on like someone had died. The husband was just standing there looking embarrassed. I couldn't help but smile. How unfortunate for them. Rose Williams, what did you do? I took control of my own finances. Revolutionary concept, apparently. Carol was quiet for a moment. Good for you. It's about time. The calls from Italy became increasingly frantic. By day 4, Evelyn was sobbing into the phone. Mom, please, I'm begging you. We can't afford to stay here without the card. We're going to have to come home early, and everyone will know something's wrong. Please don't do this to me. Don't do this to her? After what she'd done to me. The final straw came on day 5. Ryan called from the airport in Rome, his voice ice cold. Mrs. Williams, congratulations. Your little stunt has completely ruined our honeymoon. We're flying back today because we can't afford to stay. Evelyn hasn't stopped crying for 2 days. I hope you're satisfied with yourself. Satisfied? I was more than satisfied. I was liberated. They landed at JFK on a Thursday afternoon, 6 days earlier than planned. I knew because Evelyn called me from the airport, her voice hoarse from crying. Mom, we need to talk. This has gone too far. Has it? You humiliated us in front of everyone. The hotel staff, the tour guides, other guests. They all think we're some kind of fraudsters who can't pay our bills. Imagine how that must feel, I said quietly. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, honey. Welcome home. I hung up and turned off my phone. Let them sit with their anger and embarrassment for a while. Let them feel what it was like to be powerless, to have their dignity stripped away in public. That evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I ordered takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant. The expensive one I'd always avoided because it wasn't in my budget. I used my credit card without guilt, without checking my balance twice, without worrying about how much I was spending. For the first time in decades, my money was mine alone. I ate my pad thai while watching the sunset from my porch, feeling more at peace than I had since David left. There was something profoundly satisfying about knowing that somewhere across town, my daughter and her husband were probably having their first real fight about money, about expectations, about what happened when the free ride ended. Tomorrow they would want to see me. Tomorrow there would be demands and ultimatums and probably tears. But tonight was mine. Tonight I was finally free. They showed up at my door Saturday morning at 8:30, both looking like they hadn't slept in days. Evelyn's eyes were red and swollen, her usually perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Ryan stood behind her, his jaw set in that way men get when they're trying to control their temper. I let them in but didn't offer coffee. "Mom, we need to talk about what happened," Evelyn said, settling onto my couch like she was preparing for battle. "Do we? I thought everything was pretty clear." Ryan cleared his throat. "Mrs. Williams, with all due respect, what you did was vindictive and cruel. We're newlyweds. This was supposed to be the most romantic time of our lives." Vindictive. I sat across from them, my hands folded calmly in my lap. I simply took control of my own credit cards. How is that vindictive? "You knew we were depending on those cards for our honeymoon," Evelyn said, her voice rising. "You deliberately sabotaged our trip. I wasn't aware I was responsible for funding your honeymoon. When did we discuss that arrangement?" The silence stretched between us. Ryan shifted uncomfortably, finally understanding that he'd walked into a conversation with landmines everywhere. "Mom, you've always been there for me financially. I just assumed." "You assumed wrong." Evelyn's face crumpled. "I don't understand why you're being so mean to me. All my life you've supported me, helped me, been there when I needed you. Now suddenly you're acting like I'm some kind of criminal. Tell me, Evelyn, how much money do you think you've spent of mine in the last 3 years?" She blinked, clearly having no idea. "I don't know. Not that much." I pulled out the folder of statements I've been carrying everywhere lately. $87,000. That's how much. Nearly $90,000 spent without my knowledge or permission. Ryan's face went white. "That can't be right. Would you like to see the documentation? Because I have 3 years' worth of credit card statements that say otherwise." Evelyn stared at the papers like they were written in a foreign language. But those were just normal expenses. Living expenses. Your rent, your car lease, your clothes, your dinners, your spa treatments, your vacations, none of those are my living expenses, Evelyn. They're yours. "I was going to pay you back," she whispered. "With what money? You haven't held a steady job in 4 years. Ryan found his voice again. "Evelyn told me she came from a well-off family. She said money wasn't an issue." I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Did she also tell you that I work 50 hours a week as a medical secretary to pay for her lifestyle? Did she mention that I haven't taken a vacation in 6 years because I couldn't afford it?" The color drained from his face. He turned to look at Evelyn, and I could see the moment when everything clicked into place for him. The expensive clothes, the luxury apartment, the effortless way she spent money, none of it was hers. "Evelyn," he said slowly, "you told me your mother was financially comfortable." "She is," Evelyn said defensively. "She has good credit, stable income." "Stable income that you've been spending," I interrupted. "While I've been eating soup and crackers for dinner so I could afford your lifestyle." Ryan stood up abruptly and walked to the window. When he turned back, his expression had changed completely. "This explains so much." "What do you mean?" Evelyn asked. "Your reaction when I suggested we pay for our own wedding. The way you panicked when I wanted to look at our joint finances. You don't have any money of your own, do you?" "I have some savings." "How much?" The question hung in the air. Evelyn's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "How much, Evelyn?" Ryan's voice was getting harder. "About $3,000, she whispered. Ryan laughed, but there was no humor in it. $3,000. And I just spent the last 6 months bragging to my friends and family about my successful independent wife. Ryan, please. Do you understand how this makes me look? My colleagues, my parents, they're all going to want to know why we came back from our honeymoon early. What am I supposed to tell them? That my wife is financially dependent on her mother, and didn't bother to mention it. I watched this exchange with a mixture of satisfaction and genuine sadness. This was what happened when lies finally came to light. This was what happened when the foundation of a relationship was built on deception. Maybe you two should go home and talk this through privately, I said, standing up. Mom, please? Evelyn grabbed my arm. Don't make me leave like this. Can't we work something out? For a moment I saw the little girl she used to be. The one who would climb into my lap when she was scared, who would tell me I was the best mommy in the world. But that little girl was gone, replaced by a woman who had used me without conscience for years. What kind of arrangement did you have in mind? Maybe I could pay you back gradually. A little each month. With what income? I'll get a job. A real job. Ryan snorted. Doing what? You don't have any skills, any experience. You've been living off your mother's credit cards for years. The cruelty in his voice made even me wince. Evelyn looked like she'd been slapped. I'll figure it out, she said, tears starting again. Mom, please. I'm sorry. I know I messed up, but I can fix this. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She was 26 years old and had never faced a real consequence in her life. Every mistake had been smoothed over. Every problem solved with my money or my intervention. I had created this monster through my own enabling. Evelyn, I said gently, I love you, but I can't continue to support you financially. You're a married woman now. It's time for you to learn to stand on your own feet. But what if I can't? Then you'll learn. Just like I had to learn when your father left us. Ryan was already heading for the door. Come on, Evelyn. We need to go home and figure out how we're going to pay our bills. Evelyn lingered for a moment, looking at me with desperate eyes. Mom, I really am sorry. About the wedding, about the money, about everything. I know you are, sweetheart. But sorry doesn't change anything. After they left, I sat in my kitchen with a cup of coffee, processing what had just happened. Ryan's mask had slipped completely during that conversation. The charming, successful man who had swept my daughter off her feet had revealed himself to be someone who valued money and status above everything else. And now that he knew Evelyn couldn't provide either, I wondered how long their marriage would last. My phone buzzed with a text from Carol. How did it go? I typed back. They know where things stand now. And I thought about Ryan's face when he learned the truth, about the way he'd spoken to Evelyn, about the cold calculation I'd seen in his eyes. I think Evelyn's about to learn some very hard lessons about the man she married. The first sign that Ryan was pulling away came 2 weeks after their disastrous conversation at my house. Evelyn called me on a Tuesday afternoon, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her words. Mom, I think Ryan wants a divorce. I set down my coffee cup and braced myself. What happened? He's been so cold to me since we got back. He barely talks to me, and when he does, it's about money. Always about money. He wants to see all my bank statements, wants to know how much debt I have, wants me to get a job immediately. Those sound like reasonable requests for a married couple. But he's being so mean about it. Yesterday he told me I had to return half my wardrobe because we can't afford it. He said I need to contribute financially to our household. I almost laughed. After years of living rent-free off my credit cards, the idea of contributing financially was apparently foreign to her. Evelyn, you are married now. Sharing financial responsibilities is normal. But I don't know how to do any of this, she wailed. I've never had to worry about money before. I don't even know how to make a budget. Then it's time to learn. There was a long pause. Mom, could you maybe talk to Ryan? Explain to him that I'm trying. No, Evelyn. This is between you and your husband. Please? He respects you. Maybe if you told him you'd help us out just until I find a job. Absolutely not. The calls continued for weeks. Each one revealed more cracks in their marriage. Ryan had started working late, claiming he needed to take on extra projects to cover their expenses. He'd canceled their gym memberships, their meal delivery service, their housekeeper. Every luxury that Evelyn had taken for granted was disappearing. He's making me feel like such a burden, she complained during one particularly long call. Yesterday he said maybe I should move back in with you until I get on my feet. My blood ran cold. He said what? He was probably just frustrated. But Mom, what if he's serious? What if he really wants me to leave? Then you'll figure out what to do, just like any other adult would. But I can't live on my own. I don't have any money, and I don't know how to manage anything. The helplessness in her voice was both heartbreaking and infuriating. I had raised her to be dependent, and now she was paying the price for my misguided protection. 3 weeks later, Ryan stopped pretending to make their marriage work. Evelyn called me at 7 in the morning hysterical. "Mom, he's leaving me. He packed a bag last night and said he needs space to think." "Where did he go?" "Back to his parents' house. He said he can't handle the financial stress anymore. He said I'm not the person he thought he married." I felt a stab of guilt. Not for cutting off the money, but for not preparing my daughter for the real world. Ryan was showing his true colors now that the illusion of wealth was gone, but Evelyn was genuinely lost without her safety net. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know. The rent on this house is $3,000 a month, and I don't have a job. I can't afford groceries, let alone utilities." "Then you need to make some hard decisions." "Mom, please. Just this once. Help me get back on my feet, and I promise I'll pay you back. I'll get a job, I'll be responsible. I'll do whatever you want." I closed my eyes, feeling the familiar tug of maternal instinct. But I forced myself to remember the wedding, the humiliation, the years of being taken for granted. "No, Evelyn." "What do you mean, no?" "I mean no. I'm not giving you money, and I'm not bailing you out of this situation. But I'm your daughter." "Yes, you are. And that's exactly why I need to let you figure this out on your own." She hung up on me. For the next month I heard nothing. No calls, no texts, no contact at all. Carol kept me updated on the gossip she heard through mutual acquaintances. Ryan had filed for separation. Evelyn had moved out of their house and was staying with various friends, rotating between couches when she wore out her welcome. Then came the call I'd been dreading. "Mrs. Williams? This is Janet Morrison, Evelyn's friend from college." I knew Janet vaguely, a sweet girl who'd always been kind to me during Evelyn's school years. "Hi, Janet. Is everything okay?" "Well, not really. I'm calling because Evelyn has been staying with me for the past week, and I'm worried about her. She's not eating much, she barely leaves the guest room, and she keeps talking about how everyone has abandoned her." My chest tightened. "I see. I know it's not my place to interfere, but she seems really lost. She keeps saying you won't help her, and Ryan won't take her calls. I think she's having some kind of breakdown." "Is she working?" "Looking for a job. She applied to a few places, but she doesn't have much experience. She got turned down for a receptionist position yesterday and cried for hours." I rubbed my temples, feeling the weight of responsibility I'd been trying to shed. "What do you want me to do, Janet? Maybe just talk to her? She won't admit it, but I think she misses you terribly." After hanging up, I sat in my car outside Janet's apartment building for 20 minutes, gathering courage. When I finally knocked on the door, Janet answered with obvious relief. "She's in the guest room," she whispered. "She hasn't come out all day." I found Evelyn curled up on a narrow twin bed, wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt I recognized from high school. Her hair was unwashed, her face pale and thin. She looked up when I entered, and for a moment neither of us spoke. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart." She started crying immediately. Not the manipulative tears I'd grown accustomed to, but the broken sobs of someone who had finally hit rock bottom. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. "I don't know how to be a person without someone taking care of me." I sat on the edge of the bed, fighting every instinct to pull her into my arms and promise to fix everything. "Then you'll learn." "But what if I can't? What if I'm too broken to figure it out?" "You're not broken, Evelyn. You're just untested." She looked at me with red, swollen eyes. "Ryan said I was a fraud. He said I pretended to be someone I wasn't to trap him into marriage." "Is that true?" She was quiet for a long time. "Maybe. I didn't mean to lie, but I never told him the truth either. I wanted him to think I was successful and independent." "Why?" "Because that's what men like Ryan want. Women who don't need them. And now I know that relationships built on lies don't work." It was the first honest thing she'd said to me in years. 2 years later, I was standing in my new kitchen, making coffee in a house I'd bought with my own money I'd finally been able to save without supporting another adult. The morning light streamed through windows that faced east, something I'd always wanted but never had before. My life had changed in ways I never expected. Without the burden of Evelyn's expenses, I'd been able to pay off my own debts and actually start living. I took that pottery class I'd been putting off for 15 years. I bought a small house with a garden where I grew tomatoes and herbs. I even started dating again, something I hadn't done since David left. Evelyn and I spoke maybe once a month now, brief conversations that were polite but distant. She'd eventually found work as a hotel clerk, earning just enough to rent a studio apartment across town. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago. Ryan had moved on quickly, already engaged to a woman from his law firm who came from old money. I didn't take pleasure in my daughter's struggles, but I didn't rescue her from them either. She was learning slowly and painfully how to be self-sufficient. Sometimes she called asking for advice about budgeting or job interviews, and I was happy to help with guidance. But I never offered money and she stopped asking. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. When I opened it, Evelyn stood on my porch holding a small potted plant. She looked different, thinner but healthier. Her hair was shorter, more practical. She wore simple clothes that looked like they came from Target rather than designer boutiques. "Hi, Mom. I brought you something for your new place." I took the plant, a small orchid with delicate white blooms. "Thank you. Would you like some coffee?" "Actually, yes. That would be nice." We sat in my sunny breakfast nook, and for the first time in years, there was no tension between us. No hidden agendas, no financial requests lurking beneath the surface. "The house is beautiful," she said, looking around. "You did a good job decorating." "Thank you. I'm still getting used to having space that's completely mine." She nodded, understanding the deeper meaning. "Mom, I owe you an apology. A real one." "Evelyn." "No, let me say this. I've had 2 years to think about everything and I finally understand what I did to you. I didn't just spend your money. I stole years of your life, your freedom, your choices. I made you responsible for my happiness while treating you like you didn't matter." I sipped my coffee, letting her words settle between us. "The wedding was the worst part," she continued. "I let Ryan's family convince me that you weren't important enough to sit with us. I was so desperate to fit into their world that I sacrificed the one person who had always been there for me." "Why?" I asked quietly. "Because I was ashamed. Ashamed that my mother worked 2 jobs while their mothers played tennis. Ashamed that you drove an old car while they had drivers. I thought if I could just pretend to be from money, I could belong somewhere." "And did you? Belong, I mean." She laughed bitterly. "Not even close. The moment they realized I wasn't wealthy, I became invisible to them. Just like I made you invisible." We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Outside, I could hear my neighbor's wind chimes and the distant sound of children playing. "I have something else to tell you," Evelyn said. "I started therapy a few months ago." "How's that going?" "Hard. Really hard. Dr. Chun says I have something called emotional dependence disorder. Basically, I never learned how to regulate my own emotions or solve my own problems because someone was always there to do it for me. I felt a stab of guilt. I didn't know. You were trying to be a good mother. But you were also trying to be my father, my provider, my protector, and my safety net all at once. It wasn't fair to either of us. What does therapy say about where we go from here? That I need to learn who I am when I'm not being taken care of. And that you need to learn who you are when you're not taking care of someone else." I looked around my peaceful kitchen, thinking about the pottery class I'd started, the book club I joined, the man named William who'd asked me to dinner next week. "I think I'm starting to figure that out." "Good," she said, and I could hear genuine happiness in her voice. "You deserve to have a life that's yours." Before she left, Evelyn hugged me, a real hug, not the perfunctory embrace we'd shared for years. "Mom, I know I can't undo the damage I caused. But I want you to know that watching you cut me off was the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to grow up. And the worst thing? Realizing how much I'd hurt the person who loved me most." After she drove away in her modest used car, I sat on my front porch with another cup of coffee. My phone buzzed with a text from William. "Still on for dinner Friday? I found a great little place with live jazz." I typed back, "Looking forward to it." For the first time in decades, I was looking forward to something that was just for me. No hidden costs, no guilt, no strings attached. Just the simple pleasure of good company and music and food I wouldn't have to budget for. The orchid Evelyn had brought me sat on the porch railing, its white petals catching the afternoon light. Orchids were resilient flowers, I'd learned. They could survive periods of neglect and bloom again when conditions were right. Maybe that was true for relationships too. I wasn't naive enough to think Evelyn and I would ever go back to the way things were before. Too much had happened, too much trust had been broken and rebuilt on different terms. But we might find something new. A relationship between two adults who respected each other's boundaries. That evening, I cooked dinner for one without feeling lonely. I read a book without interruption. I went to bed early and slept deeply, knowing that my money was safe, my heart was protected, and my life was finally completely my own. It had taken 60 years, but I had learned the difference between being needed and being used. Between unconditional love and unconditional enabling. Between being a good mother and being a doormat. And for the first time since Evelyn was born, I was truly free.